The mahogany dining table felt miles long, a dark, polished ocean separating Sarah from her father. Richard Walker slammed his hand down, the crystal glasses rattling, the water trembling. "I am not asking again, Sarah," Richard's voice boomed, echoing in the cavernous Chicago dining room. "You show up here after 6 months of silence, 3 months pregnant, and you expect me to just accept this? Who is the father?" Sarah looked up, her expression unreadable. She was pale, the pregnancy just beginning to show beneath her simple dress, but her eyes were sharp. Beside Richard, his wife, Victoria, watched with predatory stillness. Victoria was barely 10 years older than Sarah, beautiful, cold, and calculating. She was the one who had systematically pushed Sarah out of her father's life. "I asked you a question," Richard repeated, his face turning purple. Sarah slowly picked up her water glass. She took a long, deliberate sip, the sound of the ice hitting the glass the only noise in the room. She placed it down gently. And then, she smirked. The action was small, almost imperceptible, but to Richard, it was a declaration of war. "You think this is a game?" he roared. "It's not a game, Father," Sarah said, her voice quiet but vibrating with intensity. "It's a fact. I'm having a baby. Your grandchild." "A grandchild without a name? A bastard?" Victoria interjected, her voice smooth as silk. "Richard, darling, she's clearly unwell. She's trying to humiliate you." "Who is he?" Richard demanded, leaning over the table. Sarah just held his gaze. 3 months earlier, Sarah sat in a small, cramped apartment in Wicker Park, worlds away from her father's mansion. Her best friend Mark sat across from her as she cried. "He's freezing my trust fund, Mark," she whispered, her shoulders shaking. "Victoria convinced him I'm unstable. She's pushing me out. He's trying to force me to marry Chase." Mark's face tightened. Chase Anderson was the son of Richard's biggest competitor, a man Richard despised, yet saw as a tool for a merger. "It's sick. He's trying to sell you. He said I have until my 25th birthday to align with the family interests, or I'm cut off permanently. Mark, I can't let her win. Victoria has taken everything. My home, my father. She's trying to erase my mother." "So what do we do?" Mark asked. Sarah looked up, the tears stopping. A new terrifying resolve settled in her eyes. "He wants an heir, Mark. He's obsessed with the Walker bloodline. If I can't be the daughter he wants, I'll be the one he can't control." She paused, taking a deep breath. I need a baby. One that he can't dispute is mine, but one that he can never, ever control." Mark looked confused. "Sarah, what are you—" Oh. He stared at her, understanding dawning. You don't mean—" "You're my best friend, Mark," she said, her voice desperate. "You're the only person in the world I trust. Please, help me do this. Help me create a life that's mine, not his." Back at the dining table, the silence stretched. Richard was breathing hard, his authority challenged in his own home. "If you won't tell me," Richard finally said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low, "I will find out. You will not embarrass this family." He turned to his wife. "Victoria, you know what to do."
The front door of the mansion slammed shut, the sound echoing Sarah's final, defiant no. She was back in her small apartment, the adrenaline fading, leaving only bone-deep terror. "She's going to find you," Sarah said, pacing, her hands twisting in her lap. "Mark, she's not stupid. Victoria will dig. Her PI will find our clinic visits. They'll see we went together." Mark, who had been waiting for her, grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to stop. "Sarah, breathe. We knew this would happen. We practiced this. We used cash. The clinic was anonymous. We covered our tracks. She's a monster, Mark. You don't know what she's capable of. I know, Mark said, his voice firm. But she doesn't know me, remember? I'm your gay best friend. I'm harmless. I'm just the quirky sidekick. That's our armor. She's not looking for me. She's looking for a suitor. Sarah leaned her head against his chest. I'm so scared. I've put you in so much danger. We did this together, he said softly, to protect your future, to protect this baby from them. 2 days later, Victoria sat in a plush, soundproof office downtown, sipping an espresso. Across from her sat a man in an immaculate suit, Mr. Klein, the investigator. She's been living off a small stipend I couldn't convince Richard to cut. She's been seen with only one person regularly. She slid a photo across the desk. It was Mark, smiling, his arm draped casually over Sarah's shoulder outside a coffee shop. Mark Jennings, she said. He's flamboyant, a struggling artist. They've been inseparable since college. Mr. Klein raised an eyebrow. You think he is the father? Victoria laughed, a short, sharp sound. Heavens no! Look at him. He's obviously gay. He's a non-threat, a piece of emotional wallpaper. No, Sarah must have had a secret relationship, someone she's protecting. I want to know who. And if it's someone undesirable? Klein asked. If he's undesirable, we ruin him. If he's wealthy, we expose her. Either way, I want leverage. And what about this? Klein slid another file across the desk. Richard mentioned you wanted me to keep tabs on Chase Anderson. Why? Victoria's smile widened. Chase is the backup plan. Richard wants a merger, but Chase is reckless. He has weaknesses. I want to know them all. If Sarah fails, I need to make sure the Anderson deal succeeds, preferably with me controlling the strings. You're playing a complex game, Mrs. Walker. I'm just protecting my family's legacy, Victoria said, her eyes turning cold. Find the father, Mr. Klein, and dig up everything you can on Chase. I want him on his knees by the time I'm done. Sarah felt like she was being watched. Every time she left her apartment, a black sedan seemed to be parked just down the street. Her laptop glitched. Her phone calls had strange echoes. She's listening, Mark, Sarah whispered one night, the two of them huddled in the dark. It's paranoia, Sarah. She just wants to scare you. Mark tried to reassure her, but his own eyes darted toward the curtains. The next morning, Sarah went to her prenatal checkup. Her usual doctor was replaced by a new one, Dr. Evans, a man with cold eyes and an overly polished demeanor. Just a few routine questions, Ms. Walker, Dr. Evans said, not looking up from his chart. We need a full family medical history, of course, for the father's side. Is there any history of genetic illness, heart disease, addiction? Sarah froze. I don't know. You don't know? Dr. Evans smiled, a thin, tight expression. That's highly irresponsible. We're just trying to ensure the baby's health. He was pushing her. This wasn't a doctor. This was one of Victoria's men. I want my file, Sarah said, standing up. I'm afraid I can't let you do that, the doctor said, his tone still perfectly pleasant. Patient confidentiality. We wouldn't want this information getting into the wrong hands. Sarah ran out of the office, her heart pounding. She raced back to her apartment, fumbling with her keys. She burst inside, ready to tell Mark. But Mark wasn't there. His apartment, their shared sanctuary, was tossed. Furniture was overturned, cushions sliced open. Her art supplies were scattered, canvases slashed. And on the mirror, scrawled in red lipstick, Victoria's signature shade, were 2 words. I know.
Sarah's breath hitched. She stumbled backward, gasping, her cell phone dropping from her trembling hand. "Mark! Mark!" She frantically dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. She called his sister, his old college roommate. No one had heard from him. He was gone. The apartment felt like a tomb. The lipstick on the mirror seemed to drip. I know. Victoria knew. But what did she know? Did she know Mark was the father, or did she just think he was her accomplice? The landline in the apartment, a dusty, unused prop she'd never plugged in, suddenly rang. The sound was so jarring it made her scream. She stared at it. It rang again and again. Her hands shaking, she picked up the receiver. "Hello? Sarah, darling." Victoria's voice slithered through the line. "Such a mess you're in. It seems your little artist friend has disappeared. How tragic." "Where is he?" Sarah yelled, her voice breaking. "What did you do to him?" "Me? Why, I just wanted to talk to him, ask him about your situation. But he was so flighty. He ran off before we could even chat. But you know, Sarah, this all goes away. You're stressed. You're not thinking clearly. This pregnancy, it's too much for you." "What do you want?" Sarah spat. "I want what's best. Come back home. We'll handle this pregnancy. We have doctors who can take care of everything, quietly. No one ever has to know about your mistake. Or perhaps your father will find out exactly what kind of degenerate you've been fraternizing with." "You're lying. You have him." "Do I? Or did he just abandon you, Sarah? Just like your mother did?" The click of the phone echoed in the silence. Sarah collapsed, sobbing, clutching her stomach. Victoria's words were poison, aimed at the deepest wound. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "She doesn't have him. I do. If you want to see Mark alive, be at the old steel mill on the south side, 8 p.m. Come alone. Tell no one." A cold dread, deeper than anything Victoria inspired, settled over her. Was this another of Victoria's games, or was this real? She had no choice. Across town, Victoria poured herself a brandy. Mr. Klein stood opposite her. "The apartment is done. The girl is terrified. But we have a problem. My men were surveilling the building. After my team tossed the place, someone else went in. They took the target, Mark Jennings, cleanly, professionally. He was gone before we realized what happened." Victoria's glass stopped halfway to her lips. The blood drained from her face. She was a puppet master, and one of her puppets had just been stolen by another master. "Find him," she whispered, her voice lethal. "I don't care who it is. I don't care what it costs. Find him, or they'll be sweeping you out of the harbor." That night, the abandoned steel mill was a skeleton against the skyline. Sarah stepped out of her taxi, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was walking into a trap. She knew it. But the thought of Mark? She pushed open the rusted-shut door, the screech of metal echoing in the vast, dark space. "Mark? Are you here?" Only the wind answered. She walked deeper inside, past mountains of debris. "Mark!" A figure stepped out from behind a line of rusted machinery. Sarah recoiled, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. It wasn't Mark, and it wasn't one of Victoria's men. It was Chase Anderson, the man her father wanted her to marry. His suit was immaculate, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were filled with a strange, unnerving pity. "Sarah," Chase said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "What on earth are you doing here?"
"Chase?" Sarah stammered, backing away. You did this? You took Mark. Chase looked genuinely bewildered. Took Mark? Sarah, I just got here. I don't know anything about Mark. He held up his phone, the screen illuminating his face in the gloom. I got this message. Anonymous. He showed her the text. Sarah Walker was in danger. She's at the Southside Steel Mill. 8 p.m. Go alone. A chilling realization washed over them both. We've been set up, Sarah whispered. Someone wanted us both here. Who? Chase asked, his eyes scanning the darkness. Who knows about us? My stepmother, Sarah said immediately. Victoria. I don't think so, Chase said low. This feels different. Colder. Victoria plays dirty, but this is precise. Who else knows you're pregnant? Only Mark, Sarah said. Then her eyes widened. And my father. My father and yours are trying to force a merger by marrying us off. But my father, he's desperate. More than yours. He's in trouble, Sarah. Deep trouble. And he'd do anything to secure the Walker deal. You think your father kidnapped Mark? To what? Scare me into marrying you? I think, Chase said slowly, that we're both puppets in a game we don't understand. And I think Mark just got caught in the crossfire. A car engine roared to life outside, its headlights sweeping across the interior of the mill, pinning them in a blaze of light. Get down, Chase yelled, tackling Sarah behind a rusted girder as the car peeled away, tires screaming on the pavement. They were being watched. Back in the Walker mansion, Victoria threw a crystal vase against the wall. It shattered, mirroring her composure. What do you mean, gone? She shrieked at Klein. The money, Mrs. Walker. Chase Anderson's debts. They've been paid, Klein reported, his face grim. 6 figures, wiped clean, anonymously from an offshore account in the Caymans. He's no longer vulnerable. Our Chase leverage is gone. Victoria's mind raced. Who had that kind of money and that kind of motive? Who else benefited from this chaos? It's Richard. No, it can't be. Richard isn't that smart. There's more, Klein said, pulling out a small flash drive. We couldn't find Jennings, but we did find what he's been hiding. We were looking for a lover. We should have been looking for an employer. He plugged the drive into the massive television in the study. When Sarah returned to her apartment, trembling and covered in rust from the mill, she found her father waiting. Richard Walker was sitting in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, casting long, menacing shadows. Father, she breathed, her heart seizing. I gave you a chance to tell me the truth, Sarah. You chose to lie. You chose to protect him. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Richard stood up, flipping on a lamp. His face was a mask of cold fury. Victoria's investigator was thorough. He couldn't find your lover. Then what are you doing here? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He found him. Richard threw a manila folder onto the coffee table. It spilled open, scattering photographs. Sarah's blood ran cold. They weren't photos of her and Mark at a clinic. They weren't photos of them at all. They were financial records, bank transfers, offshore holdings, and one photograph. It was Mark, not in his usual artist attire, but in a $1,000 suit, stepping off a private jet. Beside him, shaking his hand and smiling, was a man Sarah knew well. Haley Anderson, Chase's ruthless, ambitious, estranged sister, the true power behind the Anderson empire and her father's most dangerous rival. Mark Jennings isn't a struggling artist, Sarah. He's a corporate spy, and he's been playing you from the very beginning.
No. The word left Sarah as a hollow gasp, echoing in the silent apartment. That's impossible. You're lying. It's one of Victoria's tricks. You think so? Richard grabbed one of the photos, shoving it in her face. It was Mark and Haley Anderson, clinking champagne glasses at a gala he and Victoria hadn't even been invited to. He's been on Haley's payroll for 2 years. The struggling artist. What a joke. He was feeding her everything. Our plans, our financials, my negotiations with Chase. Sarah stared at the photos, her mind spinning, trying to deny the evidence. Mark, the man who held her while she cried. Mark, the only person she trusted. Mark, the father of her child. It was all a lie. He was in your apartment, Richard continued, merciless. Not as your best friend, but as a spy planted by Haley to destroy our family from the inside. No, she murmured, sinking onto the sofa. Yes, Richard roared. And now you're pregnant with his child, pregnant with the child of my enemy. You didn't just disgrace this family, you compromised it. You handed Haley Anderson the one thing she didn't have, an heir with Walker blood. The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her plan, their plan, was never hers. It was Mark's. It was Haley's. Where is he? Sarah asked, her voice now dead, drained of all emotion. He's vanished, probably ran back to Haley, his job done. But it doesn't matter anymore. You are not keeping this baby, Sarah. Do you understand me? You will not give Haley Anderson a weapon to use against me. You can't. I can, Richard interrupted, his eyes like ice. I am your daughter. As long as you live under my name, you will do as I say. Victoria has already made the appointment. You're going to force me to... I am going to save this family. He turned for the door. Victoria will be here in the morning to collect you. Don't try to run. There is nowhere to go. He isn't coming for you. He never cared about you. The door slammed shut. Sarah sat in the dark, the photos scattered at her feet. But the pain was turning into something new, something hard and sharp. It wasn't fear anymore. It was rage. She had been used. She had been betrayed by everyone. Her father, her stepmother, and now the person she loved most in the world. You think I'm a pawn. You think you can control me. She picked up her phone. She had nowhere to go, but she had one last card to play. One person who hated Victoria and Haley. She dialed Chase Anderson's number. Chase, she said, her voice steady now, the tremor gone. They know. They know about everything. Sarah, what? They're going to take my baby, Chase. My father, Victoria. They're going to force me. There was a silence on the line. Then Chase's voice, low and urgent. Where are you? I'll send you the address. It's an old place, somewhere only my mother and I knew about. They won't find me there. But what about Haley, Chase? And Mark? You know he works for her, right? I know. And that's why you're going to help me. They took my best friend and turned him into a weapon. They think they've won. They think I'm broken. She stood up, staring at the photo of Mark and Haley. They haven't even begun to see what I can do.
The place was a small, forgotten brownstone in Lincoln Park, left to Sarah by her mother. The deed hidden in a trust Victoria had never found. It was dusty, silent, and safe. Chase arrived 10 minutes after her, his expression grim. My God, Sarah, a spy? Haley? They're all monsters, Sarah said, her voice flat. She was standing by the window looking out at the overgrown, walled-in garden. They played me. Mark played me. He used my pain, my trust, and he turned it into a corporate weapon for your sister. Haley is ruthless, Chase admitted, pacing the room. She's always believed my father was too weak, that I was too weak. She wants the Anderson name to mean something, and she'll crush anyone who gets in her way, even me. And my father and Victoria are no different. They're going to force me to terminate this pregnancy, Chase. Not because they're worried about me, but because they're worried about stock. So what do? We can't hide here forever. No, Sarah said, a cold fire in her eyes. We don't hide, we attack. You hate Haley, I hate Victoria, but right now, they're all just parts of the same machine. We need leverage, something that burns them all. What leverage, Sarah? They have everything. The money, the lawyers, the investigators. They have secrets, Sarah said, and I know where my father keeps his. Before she could elaborate, Chase's phone buzzed violently on the table. He looked at it, his face turning pale. You're not going to believe this. He turned the screen to her. It was a press release. Anderson heir Haley Anderson announces hostile takeover bid for Walker Industries. The Walker leadership is compromised, Anderson states. We cannot allow family instability to destroy a Chicago legacy. She did it, Chase whispered, horrified. Mark gave her enough ammunition and she just pulled the trigger. She's using your instability as the reason. She's using my baby, Sarah corrected, her voice dangerously quiet. She knew this would happen. She planned for my father to disown me. She wanted him to look unstable, irrational. This was the descent. Everything was falling apart. Her father's company was under attack by the woman whose spy was the father of her child. And just as Sarah's world seemed to tilt into pure chaos, her own phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. It contained only a video file. She pressed play. The image was grainy, poorly lit. It was Mark. He was tied to a chair in what looked like a damp basement. His face was bruised, a cut above his eye bleeding sluggishly. He looked terrified. He tried to speak, but he was gagged. Then a voice spoke from off camera, a voice she recognized instantly. Hello, Sarah. It wasn't Haley Anderson. You thought you were so clever, running off, trying to hide, but you left your little traitor behind. Haley plays for keeps, it's true, but so do I. The camera panned, showing Mr. Klein standing in the corner holding a syringe. So here's the choice, darling. You come to the clinic, you get rid of your problem, or your little spy gets a permanent solution. And the world would think poor unstable Haley Anderson finally went too far. Your choice.
Are you insane? Chase grabbed her arm. You can't trust Victoria. She will kill Mark and then she will kill you. I'm not going to the clinic, Chase, Sarah said, her voice shaking, a terrifying cold calm settling over her. And I'm not letting her win. Not anymore. Then what are you doing? There's no time. She's a sociopath. My mother knew, Sarah said, her eyes scanning the room, landing on a heavy, ornate wooden desk. My mother knew Victoria was dangerous. She told me if I was ever in a position where I had no way out, to look where her legacy was. Her legacy? Sarah walked to the desk, her mother's old writing desk. She pulled at the locked top drawer. It was solid. Get the fire poker, she ordered Chase. He hesitated, then wrenched the heavy iron poker from the fireplace. Sarah jammed it into the seam and pried. The old wood splintered and groaned, then snapped open. It wasn't a drawer. It was a false front. Inside was a single velvet-covered box. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened it. It didn't contain jewels. It contained a small leather-bound journal and a single sealed manila envelope. What is it? Chase whispered. Sarah opened the journal. It was her mother's handwriting, frantic, scared. The last entries before she died. He brings her into my house, Victoria. He says she's just a consultant, but I see her. She doesn't look at him with ambition. She looks at him with recognition. It's that same hunger, the same eyes, the eyes of Amanda. Amanda? Chase asked. I don't know. Sarah read on, her blood turning to ice. She's not a stranger. I know she isn't. Richard found her. He found the one person in the world who would help him destroy me. He found my sister. Sarah stumbled back, dropping the book. No,
No, that can't be. Chase picked it up. Your mother had a sister? A half-sister, Sarah whispered, the fragmented stories of her childhood suddenly snapping into focus. My grandmother. She said her first husband was a monster, that he had another family, a daughter he abandoned. Amanda. Victoria. Oh my God. She's my aunt. Sarah. She came here, not as a mistress. She came here for revenge. Revenge on my mother for having the life she thought she deserved. She ripped open the sealed manila envelope. It wasn't a document. It was a DNA test. A paternity test. This is... Sarah's voice failed her. It's dated 2 weeks after I was born. Whose is it? Chase asked, bracing himself. Sarah unfolded the paper. The subjects are listed as Child Sarah Walker and Father Richard Walker. She read the result and the world stopped. Excluded, she whispered. Probability of paternity, 0%. What? Chase said. What does that mean? It's fake. Your mother was terrified of him, Sarah said, the truth landing with the force of a physical blow. She knew he was a monster, and she knew he wasn't my father. The journal entry she had missed. I have to protect her. Richard is possessive. If he knew she wasn't his blood, if he knew she was Michael's, he would destroy us both. This DNA test is my only insurance. The original. He can never know. He can never, ever know the truth. Victoria wasn't just trying to push out a stepdaughter. Richard wasn't just trying to control his rebellious child. They were both trying to control an heir who had no claim to the Walker name at all. And the entire time, Victoria, her aunt, had been trying to destroy a woman for a life that was never even hers to begin with. Sarah's phone buzzed. Victoria. Time's up, darling. The clinic or the basement? Sarah looked at the DNA test in her hand. She looked at Chase. The fear was gone. The rage was gone. All that was left was a terrifying, brilliant clarity. Send me the address. The one for the clinic. I'm on my way. Sarah, no! Chase yelled as she hung up. She doesn't want me to get rid of the baby, Chase. She just wants me at the clinic. She's going to kill Mark and she's going to make it look like I did it. The hysterical, pregnant, unstable daughter. And you're walking into it? She thinks she's blackmailing the Walker heir, Sarah said, holding up the DNA test. But I'm not the Walker heir. I'm just the woman who's about to burn their entire world to the ground. And I'm bringing the matches.
The clinic was a sterile white office space on the 14th floor of a downtown skyscraper, empty and cold. The lease, Sarah knew, was under one of Victoria's shell companies. When Sarah stepped off the elevator, Victoria was waiting, flanked by Mr. Klein. Punctual, Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. So glad you decided to be reasonable. Where is he? Sarah demanded. Victoria motioned with her head. In a glass-walled conference room, Mark was slumped in a chair, his face pale but conscious. He looked up, his eyes wide with terror as he saw Sarah. The deal was simple, Sarah, Victoria said, blocking her path. You sign the papers, you take care of your problem, and he lives. Though, honestly, I'm doing you a favor. He's a traitor. Is he? Sarah asked, her voice quiet. Or is he just a pawn? Like me. We're all pawns in someone's game, darling. I just happen to be the queen. Did you really think you, a spoiled, naive child, could protect anything? You're right. I was naive. I thought you were just a gold digger who hated me. I didn't realize you were Amanda. The blood drained from Victoria's face. For the first time, her mask of perfect control cracked. How do you know that name? My mother left me a journal. She knew you. Her abandoned sister, the one who came back full of poison and jealousy, furious that my mother had the perfect life you were denied. She stole everything from me, Victoria hissed, her voice dropping, the facade gone, replaced with a raw, decades-old fury. She got the family, the name, the money, And you got to be the precious heir. I've spent 20 years taking it all back, piece by piece, starting with Richard and ending with you. And what a waste, Sarah said, her voice filled with a chilling pity. 20 years, Amanda? All that scheming, all that hate, all for a lie. She held up the DNA test. You've been fighting to destroy the Walker heir, but I'm not the Walker heir. Richard Walker? He's not my father. Victoria stared at the paper, her mind unable to process the words. You're lying. It's a trick. Is it? Sarah said. In that moment of stunned silence, Mark exploded into action. But he didn't run for the door. He lunged at Sarah, his hand outstretched, not for her, but for the DNA test. Haley needs that, he screamed. Before Klein could react, the main elevator dinged. The door slid open. Haley Anderson stood there, flanked by 2 imposing security guards. She looked bored. Honestly, Mark, Haley said, stepping into the room, you were supposed to secure the girl and the leverage, not just scream about it. The room was a pressure cooker. Victoria, stunned by Sarah's revelation, Mark, caught between his 2 employers, Sarah, holding the paper that could destroy everyone. You, Victoria whispered, pointing at Mark. You worked for her. He did, but he worked for you first, didn't he, Amanda? You hired him years ago, a struggling artist to get close to your stepdaughter, to find her weaknesses. I just offered him a better price to report on both of you. He was a terrible spy. Far too emotional. Mark looked at Sarah, his face a mask of shame and desperation. Sarah, I did love you. The baby was real for me. I was trying to protect you from all of them. The side door burst open. Police, Chase yelled, standing behind 2 uniformed officers. She's in here. They have a hostage. It was chaos. Klein lunged for Sarah. Chase tackled Klein. And just as the police raised their weapons, the final actor arrived. Richard Walker pushed past them, his face purple with rage. What is the meaning of this? Victoria, Sarah. All eyes turned to Sarah. She stood in the eye of the storm. She looked at Victoria, the aunt who destroyed her own family for a ghost. She looked at Mark, the man she loved, who had betrayed her more deeply than any of them. She looked at Haley, who saw them all as pieces on a board. And finally, she looked at Richard, the man who had tried to sell her, to control her, to break her. You all wanted the Walker legacy, Sarah asked, her voice echoing in the sudden silence. You all fought so hard for it. She held the DNA test high. Here it is. She didn't give it to anyone. She simply opened her hand and let it fall. The single sheet of paper fluttered in the air. Victoria lunged for it. Haley's security moved. Richard just stared, frozen. Sarah turned around. She ignored the shouts, the commands from the police, the desperate cry of Sarah, wait, from both Mark and Chase. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and stepped inside. As the door slid shut, the last thing she saw was her entire former life erupting into flames, all of them scrambling on the floor for a piece of paper that meant nothing. 6 months later, a small, bright apartment in Santa Monica, overlooking the ocean. Sarah, no longer a walker, was just Sarah. She rocked a small baby in her arms. The door opened. Chase walked in, holding a bag of groceries. He looked tired, but he smiled. How is he? He asked softly. He's quiet today, Sarah said. Looking up, her face was different. The hardness was gone, replaced with a weary peace. Chase put a hand on her shoulder. The trials are over. Victoria, Amanda, was convicted. Klein's testimony sealed it. Haley's takeover bid succeeded. She sent a trust fund for the baby, said it was severance. I don't want it, Sarah said. I know. I already sent it back. And Rich, he's fighting it, of course. He insists the DNA test was a fake.
He can't accept that none of it was his. And Mark? He's gone. Took a plea. Testified against everyone. I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. Chase sat beside her, looking at the baby. He's perfect, Sarah. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile she'd had in a year. She touched her son's cheek. He's not a Walker. He's not an Anderson. He's not Leverage. What is he? He's mine.